So, Gary, we were going to look today at some note choices and scale choices.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've done a video fairly recently, and it was about, you asked me, like, tell me the things that you get asked the most of all.
Yes.
And we dealt with sort of speed at a sort of an introductory level. What I'd like to do today, which I think is another follow-on from that in terms of a question that I frequently get asked, is what do I play over what?
Yeah, absolutely. What you mean, like playing over the changes, as you hear in the jazz world?
Yeah, and playing over sort of, a sort of a classic song or whatever, if we're going to improvise. Often people can't always quite pinpoint it. They're not always the most articulate when it comes to actually telling you what they want. Often people say, what are the scales?
Yeah.
And I say to people, just knowing the scales, it's like owning a pet tiger. It's wonderful bar talk. Oh, I've got a pet tiger, Oh, it's brilliant. Poo's this big. However, in the real world, it's a nightmare. Because if you just know a scale, but you don't know how to apply it, it kind of becomes a little bit useless and pointless.
Yeah.
It's great telling somebody, the Phrygian dominant in every single key, but it's like, are you going to use that at the Dog and Duck on Friday night whilst doing a wig out end solo to All Right Now? Maybe not.
Maybe not. No.
There are places and times for everything.
Yeah.
But today is really about what can we use over what. When presented with a chord progression, how do we approach it?
Okay, brilliant.
Yep, you happy with that?
Happy with that, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what scale does everybody churn out over absolutely everything when they're given any kind of chord progression regardless?
Well, that would be the pentatonic scale.
That would be. And many people do not even discern between the major or the minor pentatonic. They just churn out the minor pentatonic. Now, there's a reason why the pentatonic scales are so popular. And one of the reasons is that they cover so many bases in terms of what you can play over.
Okay.
So if presented with the blues, the minor pentatonic will, sort of suffice. If presented with a minor chord progression, which normally your choices of notes might differ slightly from a normal 12-bar blues, again, it will cover that situation. And if you can find the right one, so effectively you're playing major pentatonic even if you don't know it, then it will work over a major chord progression.
Okay.
So let's see that in action, shall we?
Okay.
Let's do that. So, do you know the minor pentatonic? I think I'm teaching grandmother to suck eggs here.
Yeah, I do, yeah. It's first position shape. What, for A minor?
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a blues or booze, in the key of A, and I want you to just have a little blast over the top.
Okay.
Happy with that?
I think so.
Lovely. Weekend warrior styling.
Yes, it certainly is.
Reel out the minor pentatonic, and then if you're feeling particularly fruity, whack it up an octave. That's 12 frets, folks. And wail away.
I should have done that, actually.
Your heart's going to do it. Okay, a perfectly acceptable way of playing the blues.
Oh, I actually missed the 12 frets and went to 10 frets at one point, but there we go, never mind.
It's all right, it's all good.
Yeah.
So, what we're going to do now is we're going to explore using it over a straightforward minor progression. Now, there are some people out there who might go, well, you know, blues is kind of minory, isn't it? Well, yeah, you know, you could play the blues using all major chords. You could play the blues using all minor chords. You could go A minor, D minor, E minor.
Yeah.
You could use a combination, A minor, D major, E minor. So there are a few options. The blues, though, is a little bit of a misleading thing. The reason being that there are certain notes which shouldn't work together, like playing the minor third, that's the C note. So for those looking at the first position of the A minor pentatonic, that's the 8th fret on the bottom string, the 5th fret on the G string, and the 8th fret of the top string in the first position. That shouldn't...
You show how that fits into the first position as well.
So it's basically the second note, the one that comes right after the root note.
Yeah.
So you've got 5, then 8. Well, the 8 is your C. Then you've got D, E, that's 5 and 7 on the A. G, A, 5 and 7 on the D, which then leads to your C note, 5th fret on the G. Carry on going into the upper octave, and of course both E strings will have a C on the 8th fret as they're both E.
Yeah.
So that's where they're located. So that note against an A minor chord would fit perfectly. On a major chord, when we listen to it, it actually sounds really awful.
Yeah.
But when we're playing the blues,
Play a A major. You can't really tell that mine isn't fitting. Yeah.
You know, like the blues note, we tend to sort of swing through it fast enough or bend it a little bit, you know. Do you see what I mean? So they're almost hinting at it getting to the target note, which is the major third, the C sharp. We ain't quite getting there.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to swap to a clean sound.
Okay.
Look what you made me do.
Clean sound, what's that?
Clean sound. Something Fender amps have.
Do they?
Yeah. No, I'm going to play
Won't
you
get one of them then.
No, don't do it to yourself. Rumour has it Mesa Boogies have a clean channel as well. That's why I stopped using them. Joking. Of course you need a clean sound. Of course you do.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play you a chord progression now in a true minor style. So we're not going to muddy the waters with anything different like the blues does.
Yeah.
These are going to be chords taken from the A minor scale. So these chords are combinations of notes, different combinations from the A minor scale.
Or mostly like A minor, D minor, E minor, or you go
all that sort of thing.
like C.
Might well put the F, the G, the C major,
yeah.
Maybe even a B minor flat 5.
Yeah, okay.
But
you want me to do
just
some...
won't talk about that. It's in the scale, that's all you need to know. So this should now kind of, like every note should kind of be a winner, really.
Yeah.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Weekend Warrior style.
So that all works and nothing hurts.
Yep.
Basically. So now we're going to use this as if it were a major pentatonic. So I'm now going to play something in the true key of C. So not the bluesy key of C. I'm not using, 7th, dominant 7th chords in the key of C. This isn't a blues. This is just something which would, like the A minor, but in the key of C. So A minor is the relative minor to C major. I'll be using similar chords, But our root note will be a happy one. It will be C rather than the more A minor. So. Ending on the major
third. Did you
third,
like that?
I did. I was digging
not
that.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, I'm just turning back again to get to a sensible tone.
Okay. A workable tone.
Give me more gain. Okay, so what we've seen here is three musical situations where the minor pentatonic is working for us.
Yep.
So you can see already why it's so popular.
Yep, absolutely.
But also limiting. Because the temptation is to play similar licks over everything and you end up with very similar sounding stuff. So let's look at what else is available to us.
Yep. Throw the barn doors open and chuck in a few extra notes. Yeah.
Now, many people are interested in learning modes. And without going too deeply into modes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some of the notes from a very useful mode. But if you want to learn about modes, that's a whole other lesson to deal with.
We have got a podcast lesson, which you can go back and find on our SoundCloud.
Yeah, listen to that.
Listen to that.
Listen to that.
And then while you're at it, listen to all the other audio.
That's right. And like them 500 times. So, what we're going to look at is the other notes. We already know in a blues, we can use the blues note. The blues note is the flattened fifth.
Yeah.
How do we know that? If we were to go up either an A minor or an A major scale, and we were to find the fifth note, so in the key of A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that brings us to an E. Flatten it to an E flat, add it into your minor pentatonic, you've got the blues scale. Now, this stretches things out a little bit, but most weekend warriors know this. So let's give them something they don't know, and you know all about the blues note.
Yeah.
So with the blues note, the only thing I will say is usually you want to get in there, use it quickly and get out again.
Yeah.
So often, because it's a note that clashes or can clash, we don't tend to linger on it.
No.
So we might do a little roll. Well, we're quickly putting it in a quick chromatic sequence. Or we might... We're sort of bending up to it, coming back, yeah. So the blues note is useful, but it's like a flavour.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a little flavour. Our minor pentatonic does a lot on its own. Put in the blues note. It just kind of makes it a little bluesier.
Yep.
If you want to be slightly contentious, you can bend from the blues note if you want to. There was an album that came out many, many moons ago by Jason Becker, and it had a song on it called Altitudes.
Okay.
Now, I believe Jason Becker was quite renowned for this sort of thing, and certainly Marty Friedman was as well. That's bending from unusual notes. You listen to Altitudes, there's some very unusual starting points for bending, and it's really ear bending, excuse the pun.
Yeah.
But you know, you listen to it and you go, oh, that then. So it's quite interesting to listen to. So you can, if you want to kind of play something a bit arresting.
Marty Friedman in there as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, Marty Friedman is well renowned for using sort of strange, unusual, exotic scales, particularly Eastern scales. Check him out, folks. If you haven't heard of Marty Friedman, you is missing out.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a couple of different ways to use that blues note.
Okay.
But there's more. There's much more. If we add the 6th and the 9th, so if we were to go up, in this case the major scale, adding the major 6th, which would be the F sharp, and the 9th, which is the B, that would be Dorian.
Yeah.
So you're adding the blues as well.
Yeah, I chucked a little bluesy note
Awesome.
in there too.
So to do that, on the bottom E string, you go 5, 7, 8. Your A string remains the same, but you can put the blues note in if you want to for a flavour again. Or the blues note. Both middle strings, it's 4, 5 and 7, folks. Both top strings is 5, 7, 8. And if you want to add the blues note in from the octave above the first one, it's 8th fret on the G string.
Yep.
So you can end up with actually an 8-note scale if you do that. Pretty cool.
Drop my pick there, everyone, sorry.
Happens to the best of us.
I missed it there. My fingers a bit there as well. That's why I'm here, to show, to encourage you along with a bit of amateurish playing.
Well, let my stormtrooper.
The force is strong with this one. And so is the tea.
You've done 900 hours of teaching. Feel good you would not. Right, so.
Wonderful.
We digress. How did we go from Stormtrooper to Yoda?
Yes.
So we've got this kind of composite scale, the Dorian mode. It may seem complicated, but actually, if you follow what we're doing it kind of loosely within the shape of the first position of the minor pentatonic. The other thing too, to debunk any of the confusion over it, if you want to play Dorian in any key, it's the equivalent of the major scale from a step down. So if you're in A, you're playing G major, but you're starting it on A.
Okay, yep.
So if you know anything about key signatures, G has one sharp, which is F. So in other words, you're playing all natural notes apart from F. Yeah. You're going A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we sling in the blues note for a flavour. Simple as that.
Okay.
Now, how does this help us? Well, if you could play me a sort of a bluesy kind of, maybe not too distorted, but like a bluesy backing, I'm now going to add in some of these lovely other notes.
Would you like a shuffle or something?
Sorry? Whatever you're comfortable with. So like a...
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So key of A... Well,
oh, yeah, let's start.
Yeah. So let's maybe break down some of that.
Okay, cool.
These notes really make quite a difference to, the sound of what we can do. You could keep it super bluesy. You could make it jazzier sounding. You could arrange the notes, 3 notes a string, and rip through it and shred through it if that's your thing. It really opens things up quite a lot.
Okay.
The difference really here as well is that whereas with the minor pentatonic we've got some quite large intervals, we've got some places in the scale where it jumps a tone and a half, that's the equivalent of 3 frets. Here we're never more really than a sort of a tone away from our next note. It's tones and semitones.
Yeah.
So what I want you to do, I'm going to also go for a clean sound again.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but I've heard it's really sparkly or something. And I'll let you play over the top.
Cool. Apologies for the warts.
Fine, we all have them.
Yeah.
So how do you find using the extra notes?
Yes, okay. It starts making you think a little bit different in terms of where you can fall over your fingers a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it a bit before, I suppose. You sort of play around with them a bit, and sometimes if you start a phrase with them, it can sound a little bit jarring, and that's nice. Sometimes you can finish a phrase with one of the new notes, and it doesn't sound quite right sometimes. So, there's all kinds of things.
Let me show you a couple of openers. So, if you could give me, say...
something similar to what I was doing.
Yeah.
Bit slower, or?
As you wish.
Yeah.
So knowing the sweet spots within the scale is always good. The tricky thing is that when you're used to playing in minor pentatonic, it's hard to find a note that actually sounds bad.
Yeah.
It's a bit like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
You can't really not win.
Yeah.
But what you've got to do when you're using more notes is sort of engage your brain and think of what you're playing over.
Great.
And how that sort of is going to pan out and work for you. So one of my favourite openers, which I didn't realise until a few years ago, somebody goes, "Oh, you use the major 6 a lot when you play, don't you?"
Yeah.
Well, I haven't really
Oh yeah, so I do.
I haven't really sat down and thought about it. So what I often do is bend.
Yeah, that's nice.
From the 6, which is the F sharp in our Dorian mode, on the 7th fret of the B string, up to the G, which is at the 8th fret, which is the 7th.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah. Nice licks around there, yeah.
Remember with music, it's about tension and release. If you're playing a note that's slightly not off, but is a note which is a colour tone, i.e. it's not a note that's necessarily in the chord, it's not a chord tone, therefore it must be a colour tone.
Yep.
When you go to a chord tone, you will get that release that you are looking for.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay? There's a really great Rick Beato video out there, check it out, where he explains this and explains it well. Look at the notes that are in chords. Us guitarists, we're terrible with patterns.
Yeah.
For everything, from scales to chords to the lot. You know, I'm surprised we don't go around with fair old jumpers on, all of us. much we like patterns.
Yeah.
You know, I've got Rudolph goes all the way around. Look, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, if you kind of think in terms of notes rather than patterns, then your world is definitely going to be a more interesting place, because you're going to be coming up with things that are more original than just ripping through a pattern. Patterns are a useful, quick-fire way to learn.
Yeah.
And they're a very nice, easy way to learn. However, when we're thinking of notes, we can then think of how that is imposed over the chord. It was indeed one of my favourite guitarists, Guthrie Govan, who famously once said, it's probably not famous, but it means a lot to me. He said, every note in a scale over a chord has a very special sound. And over every different chord in that key, that note sounds different. That's why you can have a repeated phrase, fast or slow, and a chord progression churning away underneath it. And as you go from chord to chord, it sounds a little different.
Yeah.
Even though you're playing the same thing.
Like a total win. Yeah. It's a winning combination, that.
Yeah. So in layman's terms, if I'm playing an A minor chord and I play C over it, I'm playing the minor third. Now, if you then change to a D7 chord and I still play C, now I'm playing the 7th, the dominant 7th. So if I wanted on the A minor, that note, that's going to be in the chord. If I want it to kind of carry on with a resolved sound, which it already has because it's a note from the chord, I'd probably have to bend up to the E. Over the A minor. Those are two notes in the actual chord, C and E. Or I go down to the A. If I want to jar people, I take it to a colour tone. So I can take it up to a D. Which is released when I move up there. So as I pass through the notes which are belonging in the chord or not belonging in the chord, their effect is different.
Yeah, okay.
Now, if I do the same thing with the D, as you change to D7, the next thing in the 12-bar progression, I'm starting with the dominant 7, so I can bend it up to D, which sounded funny over the A minor, but now we'll resolve it. Keep it resolved because it's still in the chord. But if I bend to E, which works over A minor, it's now the 9th.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas that's the 5th over the A. And the F sharp, that's again a chord tone for the D. D. Now, if you carried on this logical kind of situation with the notes,
yeah,
especially if you were like looking at, say, a normal A minor scale,
yeah,
and all of the chords that you would have in a normal key of A minor, so A minor, B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, oh, the list goes on.
Yes.
As you played each note over each chord, it would have a different implication.
Yeah.
If you follow what I mean.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So an A played over A minor is the root. An A played over a B half diminished chord is essentially the seventh.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
As you go over a C, it becomes the sixth. Over a D, it becomes the fifth. As you go over an E, it's actually the ninth. No, that's F sharp. What am I talking about? 2, 3, 4th, which would be the 11th. So it'd be the 11th.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And so on. And so on. Over the F, it's the major third. Over the G, it's the ninth. And so on. So that means that, you know, you wouldn't sit there and go, well, yeah, you know, if I play an F, it sounds the same as a G9, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Only an idiot, fool, buffoon would say such a lie.
In fact, I wonder if it would be an interesting exercise to play a chord comp and for me to like play just one note.
To do that.
Would that sound good?
Yeah. It means engaging the clean sound again.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
You realise you've got to pay an extra £5 for every time I have to press the clean.
I should go dirty and bridge pickup. And what note should I play? C?
Okay. Let's do that.
What we were talking about, wasn't it?
So we're doing the key of C then.
Sounds a lot better than if you weren't playing any chords underneath.
Well, yeah. Da, da, da. I bet somebody emails you and go, can't have time for that.
Oh, of course, anytime. Wonderful.
No, you may not.
Cool. That's all absolutely brilliant, actually.
Sorry, we're swigging coffee here because it'd be rude not to.
The thing is these things are brilliant to go over all the time, aren't they? They really are, even if, like, no matter what your level, it's just how much time do you often get to sort of spend thinking about the notes and what they mean for each chord? It's not
People don't. I mean, I think there's certain things that with guitarists, as they hit different levels, they become kind of maybe obsessed by in different ways. You know, when you start out, you know, it's like, I want that guitar, or, I want to learn that song, or I'm excited to get going with it. And then after a few months, that turns to frustration, and then you get a bit of a handle on it.
Yeah.
And then it's, I want to learn to play more difficult things. I want to learn to play that solo. But the actual thought process of the musicality factor.
Yeah.
Because if you're writing your own music, you would get to a point where actually this stuff would probably intuitively hit your consciousness. You know, because you sit there thinking, well, why does that happen? I know that happens, but why does that happen?
Yeah.
And then obviously if it's explained to you, or you figure it out, or you read it somewhere, then you would understand why.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that's kind of further down the line for people. You know, learning how to play Bohemian Rhapsody or the Solo to Living on a Prayer probably sort of figures more highly in sort of some people's minds, or, you know, how do you play Mr. Brightside? Oh, it's rather tricky, isn't it? It's probably more on people's hit list.
Yeah.
You know, than anything else. You've only got to go into a music. Have you ever been into a music shop on a Saturday afternoon? Have you done that?
Yeah, oh yeah. Not frequently, not as frequently as you.
I try to avoid Saturday afternoons, really. Because, you know, you end up with one of two things happen if you go into a music shop on a Saturday afternoon.
Stairway to Heaven, I imagine.
Stairway denied. Well, I don't know. It's, you know,
I've sorted that one out.
Either you get stuck in a section where, like, someone else, if there isn't a little booth you can use, someone else is playing at the same time, and then they realise that you can play fast as well.
Yeah.
So they turn their amp up louder and play fast badly.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I just want to try a guitar out, man. This isn't a competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Dave Gilmour too, and he plays a lot less notes than me.
Yeah.
I wish I could play less and get away with it. However, I cannot.
Yeah.
You know, this is the gauntlet that's been passed to me. Yeah. When I reach an age at which my hands do not move any further, and I cannot get them to move as fast as I want to, then I hope my playing is of his quality.
Yes.
And that I don't need to rip through things. But for now, I'll be a speed demon, thanks. But either that happens, or like it's just like a cacophonous, oppressive racket.
Yeah.
In the music, you can't find space. You can't hear yourself. There's too many bad versions of every song going on around you.
Yeah.
And you're like, how am I'm really going to part with $4,000, am I?
Yeah.
In this situation, you know, it's like you may as well wheel the smallest amp in the world into Piccadilly Circus and go try to hear yourself properly. Not really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anywho,
Okay.
where were we? So I got completely lost in the moment.
That's
there.
all right. No, we were just talking about like all the chord choices and how these notes kind of fit in with your consciousness at various ways at various levels.
So you go into like a music shop at prime time. Sorry, I'm back on that one again.
Yeah,
and you are gonna hear what people are working on.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's quite interesting in the funny kind of jaded sociology project kind of a way. You hear what people are working on, what they're playing, and you know they haven't quite got there yet. And it's rare that you go into a music shop and you hear something genuinely fantastic and original.
Yeah,
because most people aren't there yet.
It's not the time or the place for it either, is it? I suppose everyone's working on something. Yeah.
No, I mean people at GAC, our local store, used to say to me that when Gary Moore was alive, he would go into GAC and he'd pick up, you know, like a custom shop Strat, or he'd pick up one of their custom shop Les Pauls, and they said, you know, it's surreal, you know, sort of. It's like you've heard him on record, you've heard him on record tons of times. To actually sit next to the guy, and it's like, that's not just sounds like Gary Moore, that's Gary Moore.
Wow, yeah.
You know.
That would be incredible.
And one guy said, you know, he'd try Strats and stuff, and he'd make it sound like Jimi Hendrix, you know, he'd kind of get that kind of vibe out of the instrument.
Yeah.
You know, he'd sort of, you know, this guy had done his homework. He knew how to play.
Yeah, he was a man.
Good player, ferocious player.
Yeah.
So, it's often one of those things that's sadly far from people's consciousness, the note choice factor. But if you're soloing over a blues, the Dorian mode is a good sort of shout. If you've got a more rocky progression, so I'm going to give you a typical kind of more rocky progression, which still leans on the bluesy thing, sort of maybe a riff-based thing, A, G, C, D, E, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not with that sound. And I want you to have a go.
Okay.
So, here we have your kind of rocky, slightly bluesy, kind of slightly riffy based sort of progression.
Yeah.
All of that works. But so often in songs, things actually move subtly from key to key.
Yeah.
It may still be in A or A minor, technically, but what we can and can't get away with playing over the top may change.
Yeah, there were a few times I certainly noticed that, yeah.
Well, I kept it quite straight for you, actually.
Right, okay.
So the C, the G, the D, that was really where things were. That should have all worked quite well.
Okay.
If you didn't quite get the note you were looking for, because you've got to bear in mind, the more notes that you put into something,
yeah,
the more chance you have, not necessarily of, I mean, yes, of clashing, but sometimes even if all the notes are technically right, some notes sound sweeter than others.
Yeah.
You know, so some notes
like you were saying earlier, it needs to resolve. Yeah.
Well, they sound better over some stuff than others.
Yeah.
You know, like you can wail away using the Dorian mode when you change to a D chord.
Yeah.
You know, hanging on the D, you know, showing that change is there by what you're doing, your actions as far as your playing is concerned, or using the F sharp might be a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So, like, say you play me this simple progression, yeah. A, C, D. Okay.
Yep.
So what was I doing that was so different? Or was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm so taken into the rhythm and stuff. You were using a lot of pentatonic, I think. And I
That
didn't really
was the
catch it.
Dorian
Sorry.
mode.
I should have been...
That's all right. Don't worry. I'll tell you.
Yeah, go on.
It's fine.
Tell me. Put me out of my misery, because I was...
Did you say misery?
Yeah, I could see that you were using the Dorian, a lot of pentatonic and different shapes and stuff.
Do you think if we all got Star Wars mugs, like a couple of different characters, we could do some kind of play?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Don't make me destroy you.
Let's have some very dark music. Yes.
So, here's the deal, basically. I was hitting notes on chord changes.
Right, okay.
Now, the D was a bit of a big one because it was kind of like the end of the chord progression.
Yeah.
So I was sort of saving more noodly things, generally, for that.
Because you had the space to do it.
Yeah, and because it's also it's kind of anticipation.
Yeah.
Anticipation can be many things. Anticipation can be, you know, a sort of a drummer doing a roll around the kit or a roll on the snare.
Cool.
You know, and simultaneously, if you don't stick to a straight bass line, but the bass player plays a cool fill, and so do you, then that's cool. That's anticipating that's an important part of the song. You know, you're all rolling through together, doing something for it. So I was playing fairly straight. Maybe do a real slow run through, so one chord at a time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4.
the change, yeah?
Right, so we're hitting on the change, and also sometimes when we're going to the D, we're picking the appropriate note. Because these are all things that kind of, you know, what separates any amateur musician who's good from the professional.
The amount of wrong notes and how quickly they take to learn things and get to grips with new things.
It can be so many different things, but I suppose you know, I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, your famous guitarists, your Jimmy Pages, your Jeff Becks, the people that others look up to. But I'm talking about professional musician. That's what I do for a living. Yeah. I teach and I play. And I get gigs based on the fact that either they're with my band and we're a unit and stay together, or from other people because they know that I can do the job. Yeah. They don't have to spend hours rehearsing with me because I pick things up really quick and pick things up on the fly. And when it comes to playing a solo and things like that where the guitar steps forward, I'm capable of doing what's needed to be done. But also, it's the way you kind of top and tail things. Yeah. So it's like a professional finish.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that you know, like you could get
like someone who's painting a room or something. Yeah, like that, you know.
Give me a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Carnage, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Me and decorating are not good bedfellows. Never have been over the last 20 years that I've owned a house. Yeah. And that's why every room is white.
if you pay someone to paint a room, you expect them to come in, do it quickly, and to have straight edges and things like that.
Yeah, they'll get it absolutely bang on, absolutely perfect. I owned a house once down the coast and decided at the time, yes, we must put up some wallpaper. 8 or 9 months.
Yeah.
Because every time came to put it, I just don't think I can.
Can't face it.
No, I'm going to end up on Prozac or something if I try and put this wallpaper up one more time. You know, you put it up and it just peels off. Just stay up, yeah. It's not going to happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? But, you know, you pay someone to do a professional job. It's a professional finish. It's done the way you expect and it's done the way you want it to be.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get any nasty sounds, out of tune guitars, solos that are kind of not working with the piece.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean? And
it makes sense, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But some of that is also, it's to do with timing. It's the time spent taking these scales, these ideas, and playing them with a live band, playing them until they're honed down, until they sound good, and so that your playing gets tightened up and is precise, so that you're hearing the changes, and you're not just playing over the changes loosely, but you're playing over the changes adhering to that rhythm. That pulse is forever there.
Yeah, confidence and pulse and all those things, yeah.
So let's look at the other possibility, and this is when we get thrown a bit of a funny one. So you're playing along, here's your riffy bass song, it's all very nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Was that jazz?
I think where I was playing a little bit outside of the box, yes. Yes, it definitely was.
I used to play with a bass player called Neil Mackenzie. Neil, if you're watching.
All intended.
And of course we were just taking the mickey out of jazz. And he used to go, oh, come on boys, let's play some jazz. So you pick your neck pick up and you turn your tone all the way off. And you've got There you go, I can play jazz.
Here we go. Oh, I haven't quite got the tone thing. Tone right on.
Any note will do, doesn't matter what. And then scat in between. Skibbity bobbity boo. Skibbity boo. Jazz, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little bit, it's more jazz club than Chick Corea, but yeah. No, I do actually love jazz and jazz fusion stuff, but yeah, it always made me laugh. I had to tell you that little story. We interject with little stories, folks, so we don't mind. Somebody's not going to press the love button, are they? Going to do the thumbs down on YouTube. So. Oh, no, I don't like humour when I'm learning the guitar.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to have a thumbs down. I want to watch somebody dressed in grey that looks like John Major and has a po face.
Yeah.
Fine. Go and watch the man with the toilet seat guitar.
Exactly.
So, there are plenty of times in tunes where you've got that rocky thing going on, and then they take a kind of a sudden tack elsewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Or even they start off in like a minor key, and then they become more rocky.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's many examples. I mean, one example, although it's an age-old, slightly outdated example, is Freebird by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah.
It sort of starts in G. So it's in G major. Then it does a slight rogue by going to the F, which kind of puts it in a kind of like a C major E. Then it goes to C, but then it resolves to the G by going up to the D. But basically it's pedaling between two very closely related major keys.
Yeah, okay.
Which is G and C. And then at the end it's the G, B flat, C. So once you're there, you're into Dorian, blues, and minor pentatonic.
Gotcha.
So this frequently comes up in songs. All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So what we're going to do, we're going to add F, C, G in power chord form because it's working for us to our little selection. So at the end of our sort of riffy, chordy thing, so you clearly see you've got sort of the A, C, and D.
Yeah.
And then F, C, G, A. Now let me clarify something here. This is quite this is an interesting exercise to do. Although we're playing these in power chords, every power chord, pretty much regardless of the piece it's over, usually when you look at the other chords around it, or the melody, or what the guitarist is playing, if it's a solo or whatever, or the notes that the vocalist is singing, that chord is a major or a minor chord. Yeah. The power chord is just a bit of a smokescreen. That's so we can play it with a ballsy sound and it doesn't sound like a mess. Yeah. But basically, it would normally be a chord of that ilk. So if we're looking at our
minor, major.
Right, so our first bit of our key, our sort of song is essentially A minor, C major, D major. Yeah. Well, that's Dorian, right? Yeah. The D major signals it as Dorian. Yeah. Then we've got F major, C major, G major, A minor. So then you're in A minor territory.
Yeah, okay.
The only difference between A minor is the sixth is flat to a minor sixth.
Yeah, gotcha.
So take the F sharps, which are found on the 4th fret of the D string in this shape. Yeah. And ditch that in favour of the 8th fret on the A string. So then you get 5, 7 and 8 on the two lowest strings. 7 on the D. The B stays in the same place to start off the line on the G string, 4, 5 and 7 on the G. And then our 7th fret on the B string is going to be coming down to the F natural at the 6th. So we get 5, 6, 8. Top string remains the same, 5, 7, 8. So that little swap enables us to target our chords with our notes.
You don't want to play an F sharp over an F chord.
No. No.
Definitely not.
Because it will sound like this.
Yes, there you go. That's
unless you're writing music for a horror movie,
yeah,
you probably don't want to be doing that.
No, exactly. Yeah. That's good. Gotcha.
So, do you want to strike up the chords 4 times round the A, C and D, and then a couple of times round the, or 4 times round the others, and I'll show you how to integrate this into your playing, folks. Okay, so what was I doing? What the hell was going on? I am straying from the first position, but that doesn't mean that you can't successfully play over something like this in the first position, or do that and then take it an octave higher. So if you're up here, you've got A minor up there. So same shape, 12 frets higher. Or play the Dorian, as Gary did, up there. So there's nothing stopping you doing that.
Okay.
But what I did was when I went to the F, I targeted the F note. Back in with the Dorian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sound.
So, depending on the sound you want, because there's another way around it as well. Maybe you think, oh, I like the sound of all of this, but I'm not quite there yet. I want an easy win.
Okay.
An easy win would be to say, well, let's use the 9th. So that's the B note, the 7th fret of the two E strings.
Oh, and leave the 6th out.
Leave the 6th out. Course. Then you're leaving out the note, which is,
it's changing,
Right. So really slowly, if you could play through the first set of chords, and I'm just going to do something over that. Okay, yep. So I made a little whisker there, I'm afraid, which was a slightly wrong note. People don't talk about that. Yeah. But so basically, I was avoiding that F sharp. Now what we're going to do, just a couple of rounds slowly of the...
And then change to the other.
The chorusy bit, maybe.
So two rounds and then change to the chorus.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So I just completely ignored the fact that there was an F or F sharp in the picture.
Yeah, okay.
So here you're just adding really that one note, B.
Yeah, okay.
Now I would put money on it that your average weekend warrior could sit down for an hour on a Saturday afternoon before his gig that night, find the first position of the minor pentatonic, and add a note 2 frets above the root. So if you're in A, it's B. If you're in C, it's D. If you're in E, it's F sharp, and so on.
Yeah.
And find the 3 places which will be the same on the top 2, sorry, not top 2, on the 2 E strings, and on the G string will be a fret lower than your root note.
Yeah.
And add those in, and you've already got a slightly bigger palette of sounds.
Fret higher than the...
So if you're, in other words, your root note for A, for example, is on the 5th fret, your B on the G is the 4th.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Yeah, gotcha.
So you'd have it on the 7 of the 2 E's and the 4th of the G.
Yeah, okay.
If you kept everything else with the minor pentatonic the same.
Yeah.
But that would, even just doing that offers you something extra.
Okay.
You know, just a little bit more. And it might be that you choose that way of playing over things when you're playing over things which are questionable in terms of them switching between the bluesy side of things and the minor side of things.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, when we were doing the Eric Johnson vids,
yeah,
we were looking at some of the Eric Johnson licks. One of the typical Eric Johnson tools that he uses is using the 9th on the top string. I'm just going to swap to the, actually, stay in the key of A. So I'm up an octave up. So we're all the way up there, up at the dusty end, so to speak. And we're using the 19th fret of the top string. And he would add that note in and make little patterns out of that, you know. Just as like a flavour. In fact, it's right at the beginning of Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's got that phrase there. It's quite a cool device.
Nice one.
Because you're just adding that little bit extra. Yeah. I want things that make my ears prick up and go, what's that?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear something where I go, I've heard it all before.
Yeah.
You know, I want to hear something new. You know, there's some quite interesting pentatonic stuff out there like that. You know, adding the ninth is pretty safe because the ninth is the same for major or minor.
Yeah, okay.
It makes no odds.
Yeah, that's good.
So
that's a good nugget of information there,
good
Dan.
nuggetto. So yes, you can use that.